Welcome to our Wednesday night Bible study. We're in the book of Matthew. This is lesson number 1. And we will be starting an introduction to the book of Matthew tonight. I think it will be a good journey that we will enjoy. We'll see a lot of things where Jesus is portrayed as King of the Jews. We will get into teachings with the Beatitudes. We will do a mini-series in the middle of chapter 6 called Lord Teach Us to Pray. And prayer is the foundation for anything that is done for God. You can do a lot of things for God besides pray, but you can't do anything without prayer. Whether you're teaching, whether you're preaching, even working in the sound booth, or driving a bus, or doing nursing home ministries, or anything you have to do for God, nothing will succeed without prayer being laid as your foundation for that. And I think one of the things that's a little intimidating about prayer is people say, well, what do I say? Well, the disciples in Luke asked Jesus, Lord, teach us to pray. And Jesus didn't say, well, just talk to the Father and say anything you want. He taught them to pray. So prayer is something that can be taught. And we will go over the Lord's Prayer as an outline on how to pray. And by the time we get done with the study that I've done to learn about prayer for myself, it's not a matter of, can I tarry 1 hour? Hopefully it'll be a matter of, can I get all this in an hour? So hopefully it'll help us develop better prayer lives as we go along. We will also learn a lot about the 12 disciples. We will go over the kingdom parables in chapter 13. And there is so much more to the book of Matthew. So at this time, let's go ahead and get into it. Now Matthew the man also had another name. His name was Levi. And when Matthew met Jesus, the first thing Matthew did was open up his heart to Jesus. Matthew was sitting at the seat of customs collecting taxes from the people. Jesus said, come and follow me, and Matthew immediately left his seat of customs. And he opened up his heart to Jesus because to that time, nobody had ever really been nice to Matthew. Tax collectors were hated people in that time. What the Romans did is they would get people from the local areas to collect taxes. And Matthew was one of the people who had the tax collecting job. Well, he had to submit a certain amount of money each accounting period to the Roman Empire, and nobody knew what that amount was except Matthew. So he would be able to charge you your taxes, what he thinks you owe. Then he would pay the Romans what they demand, but he would keep anything he collected above and beyond that. So tax collectors would overcharge people on their taxes and keep that extra money for themselves. That's why they were so hated. And really the only people who would hang around tax collectors was other tax collectors and prostitutes. So these were not the cream of the crop people we are talking about. And Jesus walks up to one of these hated people and said, hey, come and join me. And what that had to do to Matthew's heart, somebody extended a hand of friendliness to him when he was doing a very bad thing against all the citizens. How easy is it for us to go around and look at people and say, I don't like what they're doing, so I am going to ignore them. I am going to shun them. If I have to deal with them, I am going to be a cold, calculating robot and nothing more. But how much can a warm, soft-spoken word melt the coldest heart? It did when Jesus talked to Matthew. It will when we talk to the people we think are mean in the world. They just might be looking for that one moment of kindness to change their entire lives like it did Matthew. And we see that after he opened his heart, how it changed his lives. He opened his home after that. We see that he threw what we call today a Matthew party. Since the only people that would hang around with him were other tax collectors who were called publicans. So if you read that word in the Gospels, publican, you're talking tax collector, not a political party. So the publicans and the prostitutes came to Matthew's house, and he introduced all his friends to Jesus. And they were comfortable with Jesus. But there were people standing outside the house looking at what happened right then, and they were not comfortable with what Jesus was doing. That was the religious leaders of the day. Now, who's comfortable with us? Are sinners comfortable with us? Do people out in the world want to be around us? Or when they see us coming, do they start running the other direction, thinking we're going to be judgmental and criticizing and hammering, browbeating them? And do religious people like being around us? Because we talk Christianese real good, and we say all the right things and do all the right things? Jesus wasn't like that. The Christian leaders were uncomfortable, and he was even called the friend of sinners. Where do we stand in our relationship with people in the world? I would challenge you to throw your own Matthew party. Invite people who can't do you favors back, who aren't the cream of the crop, who have some problems in their lives. Invite them over to your house, feed them supper, and introduce them to Jesus, just the way Matthew did. That can make such a difference in what goes on in just a few lives. We're not out to change the entire world in one night, but you can change somebody's world in one moment. And after opening up his heart and his home, a few years later, Matthew opened up his hand. You see, Matthew, being a tax collector, he would use his pen to document. He was a documenter of records. So when Jesus came to him and said, "Matthew, what's in your hand?" He had a pen. And God said, "Great, I can use that. Record your accounts of the life of Jesus." When God came to David and said, "David, what's in your hand?" David said, "All I have is a slingshot." God said, "That's great. Let's go meet Goliath." "Peter, what's in your hand?" "A net." "Whoa, I'll make you fishers of men." "Matthew, what's in your hand?" "A pen." "That's great. Write down what you know about Jesus." There's nothing spectacular or mystical about the work God has called you to do. What do you do? What do you know how to do? What's your calling? What's in your hand? God can use that for his work. You don't have to go out and train to do something you're uncomfortable with. Do what you know. Be happy in what you do and do the things you do. God can use that. And that's what he's looking for.